Good afternoon, dear teachers. Welcome to one more webinar. I'm Katia Valley, Schools and Exams Marketing Manager, and I'm talking to you from our office, Cambridge, Brazil, here in São Paulo. I see you already are sending in the chat the place you are joining from. Good afternoon, Carla. Oh, I have seen you several times here in our webinars. Thank you so much for your participation. Hello, Maria Silvia from Florianópolis. Michael Tomlinson, welcome again. So good to have you here. It's sunny over there and already evening. Wonderful in Spain. Carol. Good. So as you know, this week we have run more webinars. And if we can go to the next slide, please. If you are here for the first time, we have a playlist of the recordings of our past webinars. So on the left, the QR code directs you to our Cambridge Brazil YouTube channel, where you will find the recordings. And on the right, you have a QR code that directs you to our future webinars. Next week, here in Brazil, we have a holiday. We will be celebrating Children's Day, also Teachers' Day on the 15th of October. So we are not having webinars, but then on the week of the 16th, starting on Monday, we will have webinars every day till Friday. So stay tuned. If we move to the next slide, I invite you to follow us on social media. Our channels are really active, especially on Instagram. You'll find communication about all these webinars. A little bit of housekeeping before we begin. We will have 5 minutes for questions at the end, and we ask you to send the questions in the Q&A tool, please. By the end of this presentation, have a look at the chat box. There will be a link for feedback, and from this feedback form, you will see a link to download your certificate. As I have told you, all these webinars are being recorded, and you will have the chance to review them later or just invite friends to enjoy these webinars. Just check our Cambridge Brazil YouTube channel. And today we have the honor and the privilege of having Helen Kenyon with us. Helen is a product manager in the school's English team at Cambridge University Press and Assessment, and has developed a wide range of English language materials from project-based course to video games. She has been to Brazil this year. She was here as a presenter for Cambridge Days 2023, and she traveled, I believe, to 5 different capital cities in Brazil. Welcome, Helen. So good to have you back.
Thank you, Katia. It's good to be back. Well, I say back. I'm in Cambridge and it's a bit dark and cold, but in spirit, I'm in Brazil as well. So
good to hear that. Thank you. Without further ado, I hand over to you. Have a good presentation, everyone.
Thank you, Katia, and hello, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, Katia. Yes, I was in Brazil in July, and it was lovely and sunny. And now I'm back in Cambridge, and it's not quite so sunny, but I will hopefully share some of the enthusiasm I had when I was in Brazil with you today, because I'm going to be talking about digital and using digital in the pre-primary classroom. And I'm also going to be including in this webinar some examples from one of our Cambridge courses, which is Greenman and the Magic Forest. So you might have heard me talk about this if you were at the Cambridge days, you might have heard me talk about Greenman. But if not, he's going to be introduced to you in this webinar today. And Katia mentioned that you are that we've got some people from various parts, and I just wanted to see in the chat. I'm just going to double check the chat to see where you're all from. So Salvador, Brazil, fantastic. Catarina in Brazil, Santa Catarina. I didn't go there. Next time I need to be able to visit there as well. Sao Paulo, I was there. So lovely. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Okay, let's start then. We're going to be talking a little bit then about digital and pre-primary, and I thought we should having a think about this talk. I was thinking about what are the useful things that we can cover. So we're going to start a little bit with talking about the pre-primary context and the pre-primary classroom, and what it is specifically about this age group in particular that sets it apart from other English lessons or other age groups that we might be teaching. What do we need to consider? So we'll have a look at that. Then let's think about the whole child. What do we mean by the whole child? That's probably the first question. And why is it important in this context? We'll talk a little bit about that. We're also going to consider the real world. How is this important for pre-primary learners? How can we remind ourselves of their experiences of the real world so far, and how this impacts their learning and their motivation for learning a language? We'll talk about the value of routines, how this can really help your lessons flow as a teacher, and how routines can, we should consider routines that are matching the cognitive development of your learners. So thinking about what is possible for learners of this age group. And then of course, about how digital plays its part in this. So the tools and materials that will maybe support those areas. And if we're using digital, we want it to be purposeful, and we want it to be used in the right ways to scaffold all of those things that we've been talking about, to give us a good reason to include it in our lessons. So we'll have a look at how it can be used effectively to really enhance what you're doing and to enable your learners to learn, but enjoy it at the same time. We really want them to have positive experiences in the English classroom. So how can digital help us with that? So that's what we'll be covering. And I will periodically be asking some questions. So it would be really good if you could post some answers in the chat when they come up. I think it would be nice to use this opportunity where we can kind of share experiences. So please do join in with that. And let's hear from you about your thoughts and your experiences of teaching this age group. Okay, so let's get started. The pre-primary context. As I mentioned, you may be familiar with this course already. Maybe you're using this in your lessons, or maybe not. But we'll be using examples from Greenman and the Magic Forest, which is one of our Cambridge pre-primary courses. And it's a 3-level course for 3 to 6 year olds. So that's really what we're talking about here when we're talking about pre-primary, 3 years to 6 years old. And this course follows the adventures of Sam, Nico, and their forest friend, Greenman. So if you haven't guessed, he's the one on the right with his arms full of apples. He's got a lovely green mossy body. It's all nice and furry, and his brown hair made of bark. So he's very happy, very smiley, very natural. So we'll be using examples from this course. So I said I'm going to be asking some questions. So here's the first one. Well, there's 2 here, but it's the same question, but phrased slightly differently. So we're all here together. Let's get talking amongst ourselves a little bit. In the chat box, can you type some answers to kind of one of these questions? Essentially, they're the same question. I've just phrase them a little differently. So what characterizes a pre-primary learner, or how would you describe a pre-primary learner? If you put your answers in the chat and we can have a think, what do you think are some of the characteristics of a child of this age? Let's have a look at the chat. Curious. Yes, Vivienne, curious and full of energy. Energy is because their bodies are so new, aren't they? So yes, definitely full of energy. I mean, they're running at their full potential. They're so efficient. Definitely. Anybody else? Talkative. Yes, definitely. I mean, communication isn't a problem, is it, at this age group? They have got this natural ability to want to communicate. And creative. Yeah, this is really nice. I think they are very creative. They think about things in very different ways, don't they? Katia can be moody. Yeah, some emotional regulation is difficult. They're still learning that, aren't they? They are, how to regulate their emotions. Definitely. Well, great. That's brilliant. Yeah, there's lots of different things there to think about, isn't there? So when we think about their personalities, their behaviors, kind of their learning styles, or what they do and what they don't like, there's lots there, isn't there? There's lots to consider. They're very different from other age groups. I think we can recognize some of those traits. So the pre-primary learner, then, I think this is what, some of you have called out. This curious was definitely a word that came out here. So if we think about the pre-primary learner, I'm sure there's lots more than just this list. We could put lots more adjectives to this, but we're going to just kind of focus on a few here. So short attention spans. So children of this age group, they're still getting used to moving from the home environment to a more formal academic setting, and that change is like that physical change is also coinciding with their brains still developing, but rapidly. Their brains are developing at a very, very rapid rate. So everything that's happening to them is learning. It's a learning opportunity, but there's so much going on. So no wonder their attention is easily lost. So they're still learning how to focus on one thing. There's just so much. There's a lot of distraction. There's a lot of things to consider. And this kind of leads us to engagement. So children of this age are not motivated by what other older groups are motivated by. They're not necessarily clued into the real benefits of learning. They just want to enjoy it. They want to enjoy what they're doing. So they need to be engaged to keep that focus. And therefore, we kind of need to know how to engage them and what will motivate them, what will engage them. And then someone, I think, mentioned curiosity. And also somebody mentioned energy. Yes, having all this energy, and that combination of curiosity and energy really helps, doesn't it? Because if there's so much to be learned and their brains are rapidly developing, then everything is new to them. And it's going to bring about this natural curiosity, which is a real advantage for us as educators, a real advantage to harness that in some way, to use that curiosity to help them develop and move on. But alongside this, we have these short attention spans and a big curiosity, and we need to recognize that they're still developing memory skills. So they're really good at learning, but then they're also really good at forgetting. So we need to help and support them with that. We need to help them to develop memory. It's still very much in its early infancy. And then something else around, which is really, really important, is from the very day that they are born, they're going to be learning by copying. So this is where role models become super, super important, because they are watching and then mimicking or copying all the time. And being able to watch and repeat behavior and actions over and over is how they're perfecting things. So we need to realize that who they are copying and who they are mimicking is really important. And that could be you as the teacher, or it could be their peers. It could be the other children in the classroom with them. That's going to have a big effect. That's going to have a big effect on their learning. I'm going to bring in a little bit of academic research as well around kind of this age group, because I think that's quite important when we're considering this context. So you might have heard of this psychologist, Piaget, Swiss psychologist, and his theories on cognitive development. And you might have seen this already. It centers on 4 main stages of cognitive development. So how we learn at those different stages as we grow up. We have the sensory motor stage, so from birth to 2 years, the pre-operational stage from 2 to 7 years, and the concrete operational stage from 7 to 11, and the formal operational stage, so from 12 years to up. And because of time, I'm not going to cover all of these stages. Please, if you are interested, then do go and look up the others. It's really quite interesting to see what happens at each stage. And I think it's also really important to consider that some of the expectations we place on children, it might be not within those developmental stages. So it is quite important to think about what they can do before and what they can do after, what they're not perhaps quite ready yet for. But let's focus on the one for the age group we're looking at. So we're looking at the pre-operational stage, so about 2 to 7 years old. And that's got some very key characteristics. So this is where children can have an ability to use mental representations. So rather than just like the physical appearance of objects or people, they're also able to use mental representations of things. So that's great for when we're using materials in the class and we want to bring in other contexts. That's useful for that. Also, there's for this stage, there's also examples of kind of abstract representation. So things like pretend play. We will talk a little bit more about play and how that's important. We're talking about events that happened in the past or people that are not currently in the room. They're much more able at this age to be able to relate to those kind of abstract things that are not just happening now. So that's great because we can talk about broadening some of their experiences or getting them to reflect on things, bringing that into the English classroom. Cause and effect. That's something that they start to understand at this age. So understanding that everything has a cause and effect. And then identities. So items and people can be the same, even if they look a little bit different. They can start to make some of those links. There's some things, though, that they're not so great at, and some things that perhaps we need to consider when we're thinking about some of these activities. So they're still very much the center of their world. So they can consider their own viewpoints, they can consider their own perspectives, but perhaps they struggle to see somebody else's point of view. They're perhaps not quite there. They're still developing those kind of skills in empathy, understanding what it's like to collaborate, because it's about them. They're the center of the world. So we can really help them and support them in that. And helping them with those differences so that things can be the same even if they appear different. So helping them to make some of those links. They still need support with that as well. So we've looked a little bit about the academic research around this stage. We've talked a bit about your experiences and how we would characterize this age group. Let's talk a little bit then how that can kind of be brought together when we're thinking about the whole child. So in our lessons and in our lesson planning and in choosing activities and materials, thinking about the whole child can help to bring in some of that context, some of that academic research, some of the traits that we've all identified. So let's have a look at kind of what we consider to be a whole child approach for pre-primary. The whole child approach is around not just focusing on language. We know that we're obviously the purpose of our lessons here is to introduce English and to encourage communication in English, but we need to consider that it isn't just language for this age group. There's a holistic view that we need to take into consideration. And there's a number of factors that can add to this approach. So we're going to go through them one by one. So the personal, social and emotional development of children. So again, as Piaget said, we need to help children to recognise that their own emotions, and this is something that Katia put in the chat as well, they can be a little moody at times. So in order to interact, they need to understand their own emotions and building up that positivity within themselves, but then also understanding that other people have emotions too. That's a key part of their learning. Communicating through language, again, this is understanding about, encouraging interactions in the classroom means that we need to help them to communicate, and how they articulate and how they respond is key to their learning. Problem solving, reasoning, numeracy, this is understanding things about numbers and counting. Remember what we was Piaget was saying about they can start to relate things to each other, they can start to see things are similar and different, so making those links. And knowledge, understanding of the world, so helping children to relate their own lives and their own experiences, their experiences at home, experiences at school, helping them to understand their place in the world. That's really important for them to feel safe and secure. We're also thinking about their physical development. Their bodies are changing very, very quickly. Their brains, but also physically their bodies are changing. So that has an effect on the classroom and what we're doing in it. And then creativity. We mentioned that in the chat that learners of this age can be very, very creative, and that's great. That's, we want to help develop those skills. So thinking about that and how we're bringing that in as well is really important. The next thing we're going to talk about a little bit is about the real world. Again, as we saw in the whole child approach, helping children to understand their place within the world is very important, because we mentioned about copying, that they're learning by copying, they're learning by mimicking, and therefore their interaction with the world is really important, because that's going to not only give them confidence to be in it, but also to enable them to learn and to enable them to progress. So we need to think about how we're reflecting contexts that are relevant to them and that mean something, so that they can see themselves and what they're doing as being realistic and authentic. There's a meaning behind what they're doing. So yes, they may be in the classroom with you, but for them, learning is happening everywhere. It's happening all the time in the classroom and outside the classroom. So we can't just be in a little bubble. We need to help them to understand that the learning happens all the time, and therefore what's happening outside the classroom can also be brought in. And it feeds into that whole child approach, helping them to understand the world, their place in it. I mean, it adds authenticity, and it enables those social interactions. What you may think is, okay, well, none of these images have anything digital in them. There are no screens, there's no phones or tablets, or so how can we link this in? Well, we will talk a little bit about that, because digital can actually help with this. It can help with that link to the real world, because sometimes there isn't always the opportunity to go outside as much as we would like to. Sometimes there isn't, we can't all hold lessons outside. So digital does have a place here in linking the real world, the outside classroom space inside the classroom as well. Oh, just skipped ahead. Okay, and routines. This is really good for pre-primary in particular. We're talking about, again, this is for this age group. These children are, this is their first kind of experience of this more formal academic setting. There's perhaps not been so much routine in their life before, maybe, and so there's a real value in bringing this into your lessons. When you're planning your lessons, it can really help you to kind of facilitate the flow of learning, and manage classes, especially when we're thinking about those short attention spans and the real need to engage. So we'll have a little look at routines as well. And when we say routines, we mean familiar actions that kind of follow a schedule, and they have lots of benefits. So, well, let's ask you. Let's kind of open up and get a chat. I've talked a lot at the moment. Do you have routines in the classroom that you use? Do you? Is there a routine potentially that you might want to that you use in the pre-primary classroom that you use on a regular basis? Does anybody want to share? You want to share a routine they have? Hello song. Yes, hello is a really good one, isn't it? I'm assuming that might come at the beginning of a lesson. Weather song. Yes, songs are great. I can see that songs generally, aren't they, are good, are good as a routine, because you can do them over and over again. And children of this age really have a capacity to sing it over and over again, don't they? It usually is more than our capacity. Yeah, I can see songs are very, very popular by the looks of it. Yeah, I can. Well, I hope you're all very good at singing, because it seems like lots of you are having to do a lot of it. Oh, I like the well done. Well done's very nice. That positive language, always using positive language. And then the helper of the day, that's very nice. I think voting for a helper of the day, I like the democratic nature of that, of it being a vote, but also helping of the day. When we were talking again about the role modeling, that's really nice, isn't it? Because helping is role modeling that behavior, and then you're calling that out. You're saying, I've noticed, or we've noticed as a group. That's really nice to reinforce that positive behavior. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so lots of benefits then to using routines. I think helping children to remember and memorize is one of the things that routines can offer. Developing those memory skills. So we talked about, you used an example there about hello. So that greetings, that's going to be really good, because it's something that they're going to familiarize themselves, that language, with opening, introducing yourself, or introducing an interaction with somebody. And they help learners to notice patterns, and they're kind of inclusive, aren't they? It means that you can join in, everybody can join in, and everybody can repeat. It's very inclusive, and that's great. We don't want people to be left out. We don't want lessons where people feel like they can't join in. So routines really helpful in the pre-primary classroom. Okay, so we've looked at the whole child, we've looked at the real world, and we've looked at routines. And now we need to look at enhancing all of that with digital. So how do we use digital to reinforce those things in the pre-primary classroom? Okay, I'm going to ask another question in the chat box. How often do you use digital? So let's have a, let's see ourselves. Don't be shy. You've been great so far with telling me, sharing your ideas. How often do you use digital tools and materials in your lessons? So you've got a choice there from A to D. A, every lesson. B, once a week. C, every month. D, never. How often? I'm going to try and tally. Okay, I'm going to try and tally as you're counting. So A, B, C, or D. We're getting a few B's here. Do you use it all the time, or is it something? And there is no right answer. There's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. This is just about you thinking yourself, okay, well, how often do I bring digital in? Okay, but I have to improve it. Well, like I say, there's not a right or a wrong answer here. This is more about you thinking yourself. How often do you use it? Exactly, Vivian. There's not a recipe. There really isn't. And we're talking about digital enhancing here. It has to enhance. So if you don't need it to enhance, then that's fine. As we know, we're talking about ideas that it can, but there is no right or wrong answer. Okay, well, I think we mostly got about more B's. We got an A and a C. We didn't get any D's. So if you're somebody that's thinking actually D, but I don't want to say, that's also fine. That is completely fine. But it looks like maybe once a week you're introducing it, or you're using digital in your classroom. So great. This isn't, like I said, there's no right answer for this. It's just to share. Another question. Let's try another question. How confident do you feel? How confident do you feel using digital tools and materials in your lesson? Again, no right answer. This is kind of a bit of a self-reflection activity about you thinking yourself, and then if you're willing to share that with us as well. So A, 100% confident. There's never a problem and I love it. B, 75%. It usually goes well. And I've got used to it. C, 50%. I've got used to it, but I anticipate something may not quite go right. And then D, 10%. It's challenging for all sorts of reasons. So what do you feel? How do you feel yourself about things? Okay. Got a few B's again. Usually goes well. I've got used to it. But then also, I've got used to it, but I anticipate it may not go right. And I think somebody, I couldn't remember, catch the name, said about, I'm wondering about how effective it is. I think that's really fair. I think that's really fair to think, is it enhancing? And see. Right, okay. So we're about B and C, 50, 75%. I think we can all agree that lots have changed. We're all getting used to it. It's part of our lives, isn't it? It quickly, rapidly became part of our lives, but perhaps we're all still navigating our way around it. I mean, I certainly am, just doing this webinar, the digital things that I'm having to do, and playing audio and sharing screens. It's, yeah, every day is a learning day when you're using digital materials. But let's, I think the more we use it, the more that we can build up some of that confidence. And if we see those results in the classroom, if we start to see that it is enhancing our lessons, then also that should also give us a bit more confidence. So, as I said, there was no right or wrong answer to that. It was a bit of a self-reflection activity ourselves about how we feel as teachers in using it. So let's have a look. Let's have a look about using digital. So I'm going to be using, referencing all our digital tools that we have on our platform, Cambridge One. All our digital resources are on there. It's a one-stop shop for everything digital, for learners and for teachers. It's all in one place. You mentioned songs a lot in your routines, and I think you're completely right that songs are brilliant for bringing in routines. And songs are also really good at practicing a range of things, not just listening. But we're going to have a look at a little song now that, yes, it's about listening, but there's other things going on there as well. So let's have a look.
Don't be sad, let's knock on the door, knock on the door, knock on the door. Don't be sad, let's knock on the door. Thank you, now I'm happy. Don't be sad, let's open the window, open the window, open the window. Don't be sad, let's open the window. Thank you, now I'm happy. Don't be sad, let's look at the computer, look at the computer, look at the computer. Don't be sad, let's look at the computer. Thank you, now I'm happy. Don't be sad, let's put on your bag, put on your bag, put on your bag. Don't be sad, let's put on your bag. Thank you, now I'm happy. Don't be sad, let's wipe the board, wipe the board, wipe the board. Don't be sad, let's wipe the board. Thank you, now I'm happy. Don't be sad, let's touch the peg, touch the peg, touch the peg. Don't be sad, let's touch the peg. Thank you, now I'm happy.
I like that laugh at the end. Okay, so that's a song video. Okay, there is lots going on with that song. I particularly like the little boy that was tapping away, that was really good. One of the advantages of using kind of digital songs like this is that they're, as you can see, they are matching actions with the words. So that is really helping children to remember the language. It's helping them to link kind of what they've been learning with the actions that they're doing. So putting on the peg was one of them. There's other advantages as well. So the fact that it's a social activity. If you are asking your learners to watch this or to watch and then get up and join in, it's a very social activity. And for those learners that are a bit intimidated about being put on the spot or a bit intimidated by learning language anyway, the social aspect of learning in this way can be really beneficial. They can see other children doing it, they can see their peers doing it, and it becomes much more relatable to them. So that's really nice for a pre-primary environment. We want them to feel safe and secure. We don't want them to feel so self-conscious. Trouble saying that. Another type of video. So this is again, this is playing on like the physical aspect of learning with this age group, and the fact that they might be, you know, they might be a bit fidgety, they might have lots of energy, and they might be wanting to move around a lot. So how do we use that? How do we channel that so that they're still learning at the same time and we're still helping them to focus? So this is another video. I'm not going to play the whole thing because I'm a bit conscious of time, but I'll play the start of it so you can get a flavour. Okay, I'm going to stop it just there. You'll probably notice from that video that there wasn't any audio. It was just kind of music, gentle music, and some real world footage of children of this age group. This can be really good for routines again, because in Greenman, in fact, we use these videos at the beginning of every unit. So they're used to activate vocabulary and to kind of activate prior knowledge. Also to kind of motivate, because this is a context that, although it's not happening now, right now, it's a context that children would know. So if I was to say to you now, what kind of vocabulary do you think would come to you when watching that video? What would you say? What kind of words do you think? What kind of words? Let's have a look in the chat. What do you think, if you can remember, or do you want me to play it again? Play, yes. Playing with friends. Yes, definitely the play is a great one. The sand, yep, the sandbox. And in Greenman, what we kind of encourage, colours, lovely. Jumping and sliding. In Greenman, we would encourage that if children want to speak in L1, that can be fine. You know, if that's what's getting them engaged in the topic, if that's what's getting them wanting to speak, then fine. And you can always translate back to them. You can always say the words in English. But it's an example of using that real world experience and bringing that into the classroom, and how digital can help to do that. It can help remind children of all these other contexts. It can help them of everything, you know, the other experiences they're having in their life, to elicit that communication, to get them to talk about things that they want to talk about. Okay. Another video that we're going to look at is something that, again, is probably very familiar to you. And again, I won't show all of it because time, we don't have time for everything. But stories, using stories in the pre-primary classroom. I hope you do this. I hope you do use stories, because this age group are incredibly receptive to them. They're really good for helping to learn vocabulary, to really introduce new words, but also recycle and repeat vocabulary they already know. A lot of stories have a lot of rhyme and repetition in them. And again, that is helping children to develop those memory skills that we need to help them with. And it also gets them to think about some of the personal and emotional skills that we were talking about before. So developing empathy or seeing things from somebody else's point of view. Stories are really good for that. So let's have a look at this beginning of this story. I can't show all of it, but let's have a look at the beginning of this story from Greenman.
Unit 5. Can I help you? Hedgehog is in the forest.
I'm sad. Where are my friends?
Says Hedgehog.
There's the farm. I can see my friends. Hello, bird.
Says Hedgehog.
Hello, hedgehog.
Says Bird.
Can I help you? Can you fly? No, I can't. Have you got strong wings? No, I haven't. I'm sorry. You can't help me. Okay. Bye-bye. Hello, horse.
Says Hedgehog.
Hello, Hedgehog.
Says Horse.
Can I help you?
Can you run?
No, I can't.
Have you got strong legs?
No, I haven't.
I'm sorry. You can't help me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, I'm going to stop there. But it's a nice example of how a digital story can really bring to life the characters that we want the learners to think about, the perspectives that they're bringing, those different voices, the animation. Digital can really help to kind of motivate learners in engaging with the story in that way. So these stories, you can present them on classroom presentation software. They're very good for heads-up learning. So what we mean by getting the children to kind of all focus on the same thing. It's a nice activity to get them to really kind of involve themselves in the story and involve themselves in what's happening. So I've shown you a selection of videos there and about how potentially they can enhance some of your lessons. And here we can see how they're developing those different areas that we talked about before that's really important for this age group. So we're looking at kind of the physical development, those song videos. Greenman also has yoga videos as well, where actually children are asked to do certain yoga poses, and they can, so that's really good for not only helping to train memory, but also refining some of those motor skills, some of those gross motor skills when using their bodies. And then videos are really good for developing their cognitive development. So they can't read or write yet, but we know that they still need to be able to kind of move. They need to be able to kind of listen to songs. They need time to listen. They need time to absorb. So videos can help with that. It creates a very nice classroom environment. It gets them to learn with their peers. It gets them to think about, again, themselves, but then also in relation to others. And then play. We've talked about play being really important for this age group. It is helping them to learn to collaborate and to cooperate. So videos can provide that opportunity for play, for they can remind children of play and their experiences of play. And then also around using L1 and English, we should be allowing children to feel safe to use both L1 and English, so they can explore using language, and videos can be really good for doing that as well. So aside from videos, there are some other digital tools that can be useful. These are routine boards. So they are on the presentation software, the digital presentation software, and they're there to help you establish those routines in your lessons. That it looks like you're doing lots of them with songs, which is brilliant. And there's these ones you can use to maybe point to certain vocabulary, key vocabulary. Maybe you could ask a student to come and do the pointing while other students are saying the words and the songs again, which you also seem to be using in your lessons. Routine boards, there's one for every unit, and so you can use those as a way of building those into your lessons, and you can repeat them. Repetition is always brilliant with pre-primary. You'll get bored of it, but they won't, so keep repeating so they get comfortable and really get the hang of joining in. And then digital games. These are great for encouraging class interaction and that social aspect to learning. The ones in Greenman in particular can be used at home as well. And often parents are asking about, how do they support their child in learning? What can they do? And actually games are probably one of the best things that you can do because they're fun. And we don't want children to go home and have to feel that it can't be fun. We want them to have this positive, fun experience of learning English. So using games in the classroom that can then be repeated at home with family or parents is a really nice way of not only getting them to practice English, but actually to enjoy it as well. So this is a pairs game. And it's helping that memory recall with those memory skills as well. What stage do you think you would use a game like this? Would you use a game like this? And what stage of the lesson do you think you would use it? Beginning, end, middle? Anybody? Who would use a game like this in class? Yeah, as a vocabulary review. A warm-up. Yes, really good. A warm-up activity. That's nice, isn't it? To get them excited, to get them, that element of competition sometimes is really good, isn't it? And then a wrap-up as well. Yeah, so really good, and when we're talking about routines again, then a game as a routine, maybe at the end of the week, or it could be actually something that they look forward to. It could be something that they something that kind of is a reward, is seen as a reward. Okay, brilliant. So we've come to the end of the webinar. I hope there's been something useful there. I hope it's made you think about your own use of digital, and kind of, if it can enhance, then how you'd like to use it, to enhance your lessons. And if you're thinking about what we've talked about today, about thinking about using digital in a way that is not just about language, but is bringing in all of those different other areas of development that are important, and how it's helping to bring in some of their experiences outside of the classroom, then maybe you'll think about whether digital at certain times is something that you could use to really enhance what you're doing, and to bring that engagement and motivation. Okay, well, thank you very much.
We thank you, Helen. We do have a question for you from Viviane Esposito. Well, she says, first, I would like to thank you for the webinar. It was really amazing. I have a question though. Here it is. How can parents help us with the kids' English learning process? How can we teachers guide them through it? Parents usually get a bit anxious in order to get quick results. What do you recommend us to do? Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Vivian, thank you very much for joining. I very much appreciate it. I mean, it's nice to have people that are listening to what I'm saying. So thank you. Yeah, parents do want to see results, don't they? And I can understand why, because it's a big thing, isn't it, for your child to leave the home environment and go into a different environment, and you want to know, well, what's happening, and what are they doing, and are they okay, and are they learning? We talked about games just then in the webinar as a fun way of being able to do some of that at home, which the child has done in the class. So that is one thing. And I think what is also nice about that is that it's the child can actually show the parent how to do it because they've already had experience of it in class. So on that digital platform, you can access it from, the learner can access it from home, or the parent can access it from home, and all of those materials that they'll have been using in class, like the games, they can do at home. And that's really lovely for a child to be able to show their parent what they've been doing. And the same with songs, I would encourage parents to focus on those kinds of things, focus on the games and the songs, because if they see their child enjoying it, I think that's going to have more of a positive effect than them being able to complete a grammar activity or a gap fill activity. So get them to embrace the fun side of what you've been doing in class, and get them to show their parents the fun stuff that they've been doing.
Good advice, Helen. Yes, we know that parents sometimes, kids are not the problem. Sometimes the problem are the parents, right? Control their anxiety.
Yes.
All right. I don't see any other questions, Helen. I see lots of positive comments here. Also, Viviane says, Helen, I feel I'm on the right track after attending this amazing webinar.
Well,
thank you for your availability to be with us. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much again for all your participation. Thank you, Helen, for all your input on this webinar. It's been really wonderful. I'm sure teachers will take something out for their classes next time. And I would like to ask you, participants, if you think that 3 p.m. in the afternoon is a good time for you to attend a webinar. Is it okay for you? We have had our international speakers, and it's 3 for us, but it's usually around 7, 8, sometimes 9 in the evening for them. So that's why we are having these webinars at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, Brazil time. I would like to know if you feel like suggesting any other time. Is lunchtime a good time for you? Around noon or 1? I know you have very busy schedules, depends on the day. Some people say 3 p.m. is good, some others lunchtime is good, not good. Thank you, Leticia. All right. So now we will have the link for the feedback form. From there, you can download your certificate. All right, so stay tuned for our next webinars after Teachers' Day, right? Our next webinar is going to be October the 16th, after Teachers' Day. I thank you very much, Helen, again. Good to see you.
Yeah, and thank you to all the teachers. I think it's International Teachers' Day today, I think.
Yes, you're right. You are right. Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah, congratulations to you all, celebrating what an amazing job you do. So yeah, thank you, because wow, it is an amazing job. So I feel privileged to be able to speak on International
on the World Teachers' Day. Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
exactly. Lovely.
All right. So 4 o'clock, we need to stop. Thanks again, Helen. Thanks all teachers. Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.